hardest lesson that I've had to learn so far is realizing that there's not a shortcut. The game just came out, so there's not that many resources. There's not that many things that you can look at or look up to figure out your character for you like you can in other games that have been around for a little bit. To give you some context, I started playing Street Fighter V 4 years into the game, so any question that I had, I could just Google. Any question about my character, I could just ask somebody, because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the nuanced stuff that I couldn't figure out myself had already been figured out. But this is my first time really being here for the beginning of a new game, a beginning of a fighting game where everybody's sort of trying to learn the game all at once, and we're all sort of in the same boat. What I'm experiencing now is like my first discovery phase, and the first time I've ever really had to innovate on my own character and not look at somebody else for answers. And the only way to really test those theories that you're coming up with in the lab is to actually use them, right, in game. And when they don't work out, it's a little bit frustrating. Or when your opponent does something that you didn't calculate for in the lab, it's also like a little frustrating, because you're in your head, you're like, why didn't I think of that? Or why didn't I think he could cancel, like Nago can cancel 2S into like his little dash move to make it safe? Why didn't I think of that? And then it's like a constant cycle of learning things from the matchup, going back and labbing it. And it's fun, right? It's pretty fun doing that. It's just very hard. It's just really hard to calculate all of these different things that the other character could do for your follow-up, right? And it takes time. I could see why 4 years into Street Fighter V, when I was learning, people were still discovering new things, because there's just so many things that the other characters can do to counter what you're coming up with. And I'm starting to learn why certain characters are top tier, because they don't have to worry about some of the stuff that you have to worry about when you're figuring out how to get around certain moves. I understand why not having any bad matchups, it makes a character very good. It's because they can use a lot of their tools against other characters when you sort of have to sacrifice some of your tools to get around certain characters. I think the only character in Strive right now that I could definitively say has almost no bad matchups is Soul. There's a lot of tools to get in, to keep you out, to keep you in pressure. And if you get hit by any of those things, you're taking like 40 to 50% if they're doing, optimal conversions. You can do some wild things and some wild damage that other characters can't, and he can get around a lot of your tools in ways that other characters can't. But that's enough about Soul. Let's talk a little bit more about this sort of innovation and discovery phase that I'm in. Not only is it teaching me a lot about the game and a lot about fighting games and why certain things are the way they are, it's also teaching me a lot about myself and the way that I learn and the way that I approach things. And surprisingly, it feels like a very big confidence boost whenever you discover something and it actually works in a game. It feels very good. It teaches you that you need to trust yourself, right? You need to trust your discoveries in the lab. And even if they aren't true, you can figure out what you did wrong, and you can go through the process again and make it better. You can optimize it. I think that's why in fighting games we value players who can optimize their combos very well, optimize their damage very well when we're watching them in tournament or whatever it may be, because we understand the hard work that they've gone through. Now I understand the hard work that they've gone through. I started playing fighting games. I was just stealing combos, right? Because I had started so late that everybody had their combos out, and I would just pick the most optimal ones and do them. Never have I had to create my own optimal conversions and stick to them. Never have I had to take somebody's starter combo and then add to it, right? And optimize it myself and figure out how to make it better, or how I can make something completely different that I want to use and I think is better. There's more to learning a character now to me than just stealing combos and getting into a match. And I could see why people stick to their mains in other games so heavily, right? Because if you started with them and you put all this time into labbing them and figuring out the combos yourself, I see why you have an attachment to them so much. And the discovery phase and innovating and stuff goes way further than just combos. That's mostly what I've been focusing on for the majority of this video. The hardest thing for me is figuring out how to play solid neutral on a character like Giovanna. That's who I'm playing in the game. And if you don't play Strive or you haven't been keeping up with it, she's a very heavy rushdown character. To me, she resembles Cammy a lot, because once she gets in, she can sort of stay in for a little while with her normals. They're very plus all the time. She's plus on most of her special moves. And you can catch people trying to challenge you a lot on moves that they shouldn't be. Now, while I've played rushdown characters before, I've never played a rushdown character in an anime game, I guess you would say, or an air dashing game, a game that plays a lot faster than Street Fighter. And typically my playstyle, even on rushdown characters, like I play Karen in Street Fighter and I played Cammy before, is still pretty lame. I still lame it out a lot, and I like to block and play a little defensive and react. But in this game, it feels like that style will get you killed, because you need to be on the offensive. You need to be ready to counterattack, and you need to be ready to get in whenever the opportunity arises. You can't just hold down back for like a couple minutes and wait to punish something, because then they can cancel it into whatever they want, or Roman cancel, or there's a lot more things that they can do to stop that style of play, it feels like. Plus, you have things like negative penalty and the danger where your meter starts draining, and then I think negative penalty, your meter goes away completely. It encourages you to play more proactive, and the pace of the game is a lot faster than I'm used to, so I'm playing a rushdown character in a game that is inherently faster than anything else I've played. And it's gotten me a little bit more out of my comfort zone, right? I'm dashing a lot more, I'm moving around a lot more, I'm trying to get in and take my space. I've noticed that the walking and blocking method that I use in Street Fighter a lot isn't as effective here. You have to more like dash and block, it feels like, or walk a little bit and then dash and block. It feels more like dashing and blocking is better than just walking and blocking because the game works a lot faster. So discovering how to approach and innovating on ways to get in, whether that be using her special moves or using the dash or canceling your dash with certain buttons, has really been a huge obstacle for me. That's been one of the hardest things for me to learn. And it's got me like scouring for replays a lot of the time, whether it be on Twitch or in the game, just to watch higher level players and watch. I think I've been watching like a lot of Hanzo Gonzo, and I've been watching a lot of Flux because those are the two players that play Giovanna pretty much, and Kazunoko. And it's got me watching these replays looking for things that I otherwise would not be looking for when like watching Street Fighter replays. And I'm not looking for combos either at this point. If I see one that I don't recognize, obviously I take note of it, but what I'm mostly trying to see is how they're playing neutral and how they're getting in and how they're staying in. I've noticed now that I'm a little bit more versed in fighting games, I'm watching replays for other nuanced things that newer players probably aren't looking for. I'm not really looking for normals or spacing or combos. I'm looking for pressure. I'm looking how they're pressuring the opponent. I'm looking at how they're playing neutral in general, why they're jumping, why they're air dashing, why they're doing certain things, rather than how they're doing certain things. Because I understand the execution of these games now. I understand how to do things like instant air dash and how to execute combos. What I'm looking for now is how to actually play the game to a higher level. It's one thing to beat up on newer players who don't understand what they're doing, who are just pressing buttons in neutral. And it's one thing to fight against a person who understands what's happening, who's blocking your strings, who's blocking on wake up and not getting meatied over and over again, who's teching your throws, who's mixing up their options. And those are the things that I'm looking to beat. I'm not looking to practice my combos on new players. I'm looking to figure out how to get to a higher level. And that's the biggest difference that I've seen for myself after sort of going through that beginner phase and getting into intermediate, is that I'm looking at things differently now. And I'm trying to discover and innovate on my character rather than always looking to other people for answers. Because in all honesty, we're all going to play the game a little bit different. So I like to find things about my character that I want to use that suit my playstyle, while still checking in on other high-level players to see how they're using the things that I want to figure out. I think rather than trying to steal somebody's game plan or game style or whatever they're doing, I want to implement it into my own play. And that's been the biggest difference. If I had to give an example, I would say it was like taking another player's sensitivity when you're playing an FPS game. You know how they have those like weird charts that have all the pro player settings, and people just pick their favorite player's sensitivity and plug it into the game and just play like that. That's sort of what it felt like I was doing. And while it's been effective in the short term, I think over a long period of time, I need to find my own style, and I need to find my own play style and discover new things for myself. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching.